Assyria, a major Mesopotamian East Semitic kingdom and empire of the ancient Near East, existed as an independent state for a period of approximately 19 centuries, from the 25th century BCE to the 6th century BC, spanning the mid to early Bronze Age through to the late Iron Age. For a further 13 centuries, from the beginning of the 6th century BC to the mid-7th century AD, it survived as a geopolitical entity, for the most part ruled by foreign powers, although a number of small Neo-Assyrian states such as Ashur, Adiabene, Osron, Beth, Nuhadra and Hatra arose at different times between the 1st century BC and late 3rd century AD. Centered on the upper Tigris River, in northern Mesopotamia, the Assyrians came to rule powerful empires at several times, making up a substantial part of the greater Mesopotamian cradle of civilization, which included Sumer, Akkad and much later Babylonia. Assyria was at the height of technological, scientific and cultural achievements for its time. At its peak, the Assyrian Empire stretched from Cyprus in the Mediterranean Sea to Persia, and from what is now Armenia and Azerbaijan in the Caucasus, to the Arabian Peninsula, Egypt and eastern Libya. Assyria is named for its original capital, the ancient city of Ashur, which dates to c. 2600 BC, originally one of a number of Akkadian city-states in Mesopotamia. In the 25th and 24th centuries BC, Assyrian kings were pastoral leaders. From the late 24th century BC, the Assyrians became subject to Sargon of Akkad, who united all the Akkadian Semites and Sumerian-speaking peoples of Mesopotamia under the Akkadian Empire, which lasted from c. 2334 BC to 2154 BC. Following the fall of the Akkadian Empire c. 2154 BC, and the short-lived succeeding Neo-Sumerian Empire that ruled southern Assyria but not the north, Assyria regained full independence. The history of Assyria proper is roughly divided into three periods, known as Old Assyrian, Middle Assyrian and Neo-Assyrian. In the Old Assyrian period, Assyria established colonies in Asia Minor and the Levant, and, under King Elishuma, it asserted itself over southern Mesopotamia. From the mid-18th century BC, Assyria came into conflict with the newly created state of Babylonia, which eventually eclipsed the far older Sumero-Akkadian states in the south, such as Ur, Ising, Lhasa and Kish. Assyria experienced fluctuating fortunes in the Old Assyrian period. Assyria became a major power with the Old Assyrian Empire from the late 21st century to the mid-18th century BC. Following this, it found itself under short periods of Babylonian and Mitanni-Haran rule in the 18th and 15th centuries BC respectively. And another period of great power occurred with the rise of the Middle Assyrian Empire, which included the reigns of great kings, such as Ashurbanipal, Arik-Den-Ili, Tukulti-Ninurta-I and Tiglath-Pileser-I. During this period, Assyria overthrew the empire of Mitanni and eclipsed the Hittite Empire, Egyptian Empire, Babylonia, Elam, Canaan and Phrygia in the Near East. Beginning with the campaigns of Adad-Nirari II from 911 BC, it again became a great power over the next 3 centuries, overthrowing the 25th dynasty of Egypt and conquering Egypt, Babylonia, Elam, Urartu, Armenia, Media, Persia, Mani, Gutium, Phoenicia, Canaan, Aramea, Arabia, Israel, Judah, Edom, Moab, Ammon, Samarra, Cilicia, Cyprus, Chaldee, Nabatea, Commagene, Dilmun, Libya, the Hurrians, Sutur and Neo-Hittites, driving the Ethiopians, Cushites and Nubians from Egypt, subjugating the Cimmerians and Scythians and exacting tribute from Phrygia, Magan and Punt among others. After its fall, Assyria remained a province and geopolitical entity under the Median, Achaemenid, Seleucid, Parthian, Roman and Sassanid empires. Slowly but surely became an ethnic, linguistic, cultural and religious minority in the traditional Assyrian homelands. surviving there to this day as the indigenous people of the region. Names. Assyria was also sometimes known as Subertu and Azuhinum prior to the rise of the city-state of Ashur, after which it was Ashuriyu, and after its fall, from 605 BC through to the late 7th century AD, variously as Athura and also referenced as Aturia according to Strabo. Syria, Assyria and Ashuristan. After its dissolution in the mid-7th century AD, it remained the ecclesiastical province of Atta. The term Assyria can also refer to the geographic region or heartland where Assyria, its empires and the Assyrian people were centered. The modern Assyrian Christian ethnic minority in northern Iraq, northeast Syria, southeast Turkey and northwest Iran are the descendants of the ancient Assyrians. Prehistory of Assyria. In prehistoric times, the region that was to become known as Assyria was home to a Neanderthal culture such as has been found at the Shanidar cave. The earliest Neolithic sites in Assyria were the Jarmo culture c. 7100 BC and Tel Hassuna, the center of the Hassana culture, 6000 BC. These Semitic Akkadian-speaking ancestors of the Assyrians entered Mesopotamia c. 3000 BC and settled amongst the earlier Sumerian populace. By the mid-3rd millennium BC, a very intimate cultural symbiosis had developed between the Sumerians and the Semitic Akkadians throughout Mesopotamia, which included widespread bilingualism. The influence of Sumerian on Akkadian is evident in all areas, from lexical borrowing on a massive scale, to syntactic, morphological, and phonological convergence. This has prompted scholars to refer to Sumerian and Akkadian in the 3rd millennium BC as a Sprachbund. Akkadian gradually replaced Sumerian as the spoken language of Mesopotamia, somewhere after the turn of the 3rd and the 2nd millennium BC. But Sumerian continued to be used as a sacred, ceremonial, literary and scientific language in Mesopotamia until the 1st century AD. The cities of Ashur and Nineveh, together with a number of other Assyrian towns and cities, existed since at least before the middle of the 3rd millennium BC, although they appear to have been Sumerian-ruled administrative centers at this time, rather than independent states. According to some Judeo-Christian writers, the city of Ashur was founded by Ashur the son of Shem, who was deified by later generations as the city's patron god. However, it is not among the cities said to have been founded by him in Genesis chapter 10 verses 11 to 12, and the far older Assyrian annals make no mention of the much later Judeo-Christian figures of Shem and Ashur. Assyrian tradition lists an early Assyrian king named Ushpur as having dedicated the first temple to the god Ashur in the city in the mid-21st century BC. It is highly likely that the city was named in honor of its patron Assyrian god with the same name. Classical dating. George Syncellus in his Chronographia quotes a fragment from Julius Africanus which dates the founding of Assyria to 2284 BC. The Roman historian Velleius Paterculus, citing Aemilius Sura, states that Assyria was founded 1995 years before Philip V was defeated in 197 BC by the Romans. The sum therefore 197 plus 1995 equals 2192 BC for the foundation of Assyria. Diodorus Siculus recorded another tradition from Ctesias that dates Assyria 1306 years before 883 BC, and so the sum 883 plus 1306 equals 2189 BC. The Chronicle of Eusebius provides yet another date for the founding of Assyria, with the accession of Ninus, dating to 2057 BC. But the Armenian translation of the Chronicle puts this figure back slightly to 2116 BC. Another classical dating tradition found in the Excerpta Latina Barbari dates the foundation of Assyria, under Belus, to 2206 BC. Early Assyria, 2600–2335 BC. The city of Ashur, together with a number of other Assyrian cities, seem to have been established by 2600 BC. However, it is likely that they were initially Sumerian-dominated administrative centers. In the late 26th century BC, Enatum of Lagash, then the dominant Sumerian ruler in Mesopotamia, mentions smiting Subertu. Similarly, in c. the early 25th century BC, Lugalan Mundu, the king of the Sumerian state of Adab, lists Subertu as paying tribute to him. Of the early history of the kingdom of Assyria, little is positively known. In the Assyrian king list, the earliest king recorded was Tudia. In archaeological reports from Ebla, it appeared that Tudia's activities were confirmed with the discovery of a tablet where he concluded a treaty for the operation of a Karam in Eblate territory with King Ibrahim of Ebla. This entire reading is now questionable, as several scholars have more recently argued that the treaty in question may not have been with King Tudia of Assyria, but rather with the unnamed king of an uncertain location called Abarsal. Tudia was succeeded on the list by Adamu and then a further 13 rulers. Nothing concrete is yet known about these names, although it has been noted that a much later Babylonian tablet listing the ancestral lineage of Hammurabi, the Amorite king of Babylon, seems to have copied the same names from Tudia through Nuabu, though in a heavily corrupted form. The earliest kings, such as Tudia, who are recorded as kings who lived in tents, were independent semi-nomadic pastoralist rulers. These kings at some point became fully urbanized and founded the city-state of Ashur, Assyria in the Akkadian Empire and Neo-Sumerian empires. During the Akkadian Empire, the Assyrians, like all the Mesopotamian Semites, became subject to the dynasty of the city-state of Akkad, centered in central Mesopotamia. The Akkadian Empire, founded by Sargon the Great, claimed to encompass the surrounding four quarters. The region of Assyria, north of the seat of the empire in central Mesopotamia, had also been known as Subertu by the Sumerians, and the name Azuhinum in Akkadian records also seems to refer to Assyria proper. Assyrian rulers were subject to Sargon and his successors, and the city of Ashur became a regional administrative center of the empire, implicated by the Nuzi tablets. During this period, the Akkadian-speaking Semites of Mesopotamia came to rule an empire encompassing not only Mesopotamia itself but large swathes of Asia Minor, ancient Iran, Elam, the Arabian Peninsula, Canaan, and Syria. Assyria seems to have already been firmly involved in trade in Asia Minor by this time. The earliest known reference to Anatolian Karams in Hatti was found on later cuneiform tablets describing the early period of the Akkadian Empire. On those tablets, Assyrian traders in Burashanda implored the help of their ruler, Sargon the Great, and this appellation continued to exist throughout the Assyrian Empire for about 1,700 years. The name Hatti itself even appears in later accounts of his grandson, Naram-Sin, campaigning in Anatolia. Assyrian and Akkadian traders spread the use of writing in the form of the Mesopotamian cuneiform script to Asia Minor and the Levant. However, towards the end of the reign of Sargon the Great, the Assyrian faction rebelled against him. The tribes of Assyria of the upper country, in their turn, attacked, but they submitted to his arms, and Sargon settled their habitations, and he smote them grievously. The Akkadian Empire was destroyed by economic decline and internal civil war, followed by attacks from barbarian Gutian people in 2154 BC. The rulers of Assyria during the period between c. 2154 BC and 2112 BC once again became fully independent, as the Gutians are only known to have administered southern Mesopotamia. However, the king list is the only information from Assyria for this period. Most of Assyria briefly became part of the Neo-Sumerian Empire founded in c. 2112 BC. Sumerian domination extended as far as the city of Ashur, but appears not to have reached Nineveh and the far north of Assyria. One local ruler named Zarikim is listed as paying tribute to Amasanavar. Ashur's rulers appear to have remained largely under Sumerian domination until the mid-21st century BC. The king list names Assyrian rulers for this period, and several are known from other references to have also borne the title of Shakanaka, or vassal governors for the Neo-Sumerians.